Welcome to Ref City Podcast with Keith and Chaz, episode 1. A couple of musicians sitting around talking about all things music. We are going to kick this off and upload it pre-recorded. Hopefully, we're going to get this, in a better state soon with live chat and all that. But, we figured out to at least reach out and fucking talk to you people. So, Keith, introduce yourself.
What's up? My name is Keith. I'm an old friend of Chaz's. We make music together, and we've made music for years. Made lots of music. We're both lovers of music as well as musicians, and this is an exciting new endeavor. Starting a little podcast and see how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. So basically what's on the agenda for this episode, first things first, we're going to talk about the new Tool album. That's the hot topic. We're going to give each of our own reviews in depth because that's all I've been listening to. And after that, we're going to go into where were you when you first bought or when you bought 10,000 Days. And then your favorite Tool album, a little bit about life and shit like that. And then what music has become today versus what it used to be. Recommendations. And that's how we're going to end each episode, to try to keep people involved with each other even more than us, hopefully in the comments. If anybody ends up listening to this shit, I don't know. We're just going to give it a shot. But basically what we're going to do is end each episode with a review and a recommendation. So we'll get to that. Anyway, let's talk about the new Tool album, Fear Inoculum. Right? Did I pronounce that right? I'm very stupid, by the way. You're going to learn about me and Keith as we go along. And I am not a smart man. Keith's very well spoken. I'll probably have him read most of the stuff.
Don't say that. That's not true.
So what do you think? Fear Inoculum.
So I was listening. I was seeing little things online. Oh, the new album coming out, hearing this and that. I remember Maynard put out some things publicly saying, oh, the album's done. We're just about to record vocals. And that was exciting to hear. And of course, it's been 13 years since the last album. So it's kind of a big deal, for a lot
Dude,
of
that alone, I was trying to explain to my niece, which is 13 years old now, and I'm like, okay, she hasn't heard any Tool yet, but I'm like, okay, we've been waiting for this album for your whole life.
Yeah.
Whoa. And she actually kind of expressed the other night, she's like, I haven't heard Tool before. So I'm like, all right, that's my cue. I'm going to definitely find her I think I'm going to start her off with Enema.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like Enema's that's the one album that every Tool fan that I know, at least, always cites as that is the album to listen to, even as an introductory album.
All right, we'll get to that. What's your review? Because I got mine ready.
Well, so when it came out, I remember at first they released the title track for Inoculum, which I guess is the track 1 on the album, and I was like, okay, give it a listen. I was expecting Tool to sound very much like Tool, which they do. I was really happy with Maynard's voice and what he was doing. The production's really, really good. Might be their best, in my opinion, actually.
The production's so fucking good, man.
Yeah, it's really, really good. I mean, they spent a lot of time on that. Blow me away, but at the same time, it was only one out of a whole album. So I figured, okay, well, this is just one song. I'm going to see how the rest of the album goes. So when the rest of the album came out, I listened to it almost immediately. Like the day it came out, I was like, okay, well, it's online, so I'm just going to dive into this. I listened all the way through, and my review is that I think it's a good album. The thing is that Tool's never really put out a bad album. I really,
Well, you could say that again.
yeah, for sure. It's the production is, like I said before, it's, in my opinion, it's probably their best sounding album in terms of the,
That's a good, yeah, that's a good review. I could stand by that. Totally.
and it's my only thing is that, to me, it's, the more I think about it, the more I'm okay with it. But at first, I listened to the album and I went, man, this is really, it's really, the album sounds so much like Tool that I almost wanted it to not sound like Tool. That's,
Uh, yeah, I like careful was the word I kind of threw out to you guys.
yeah,
Like you and other close musician friends were like, hey, you know what I mean? Like they know who they are. They know their iconic status, and this sounds shitty. See, we're gonna be burning a lot of bridges with this review right now. That's what we're gonna be doing. But look, I'm not trying to cut you off, but I kind of get what you mean. Go ahead.
yeah. I mean, not necessarily. I think so. Really appreciated the way that they were writing their songs and the direction they were going with. Lots of interweaving of different time signatures, where there's a lot of times in, I think, almost every song where a time signature will be introduced, and then by the guitar, and then the bass will come in, the drums will come in, and all of each instrument will do that tempo or that time signature, but they'll stagger it. So they'll do it a little bit slightly later than each other, but it also, instrument is like a beat away from each other. For all you rhythm,
Right.
experts out there.
Oh yeah, I love the patterns, the polyrhythmic shit that's going on. Very syncopated. Yes, that's their signature, but they're jamming out big time on it. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. The I like a lot of how the songs flowed. I noticed that a lot of the songs just kind of start out with like like a guitar intro, and then eventually it sort of drops into like a full instrumental thing. That's what I would call them. But in the end, I feel like there were really only 2 or 3 songs that really made me excited out of the whole album. And
Numa, baby.
yeah, new for me it was Numa, Tempest,
Fuck yeah.
and I think it was
Wait, Numa and what?
Numa, Tempest, and I think Descending were the 3 songs
Yeah.
that really got me the most. Tempest, in my opinion, is my favorite song on the album. But I know,
Interesting. All right, I got to go back and. I mean, I've listened to it a few times, but knowing that, I'm gonna go check that one out again. Go ahead.
yeah,
Hold on, what? You broke up. Say that again.
oh, for you listeners out there, Nate, I'm sure we'll mention him many times. He's a mutual friend of me and Chaz, and he's also a fellow musician. And his favorite song is also Numa. A lot of people's favorite song is Numa, which I hear. I really like it too, but I think I like Tempest just a little bit more.
Nice. All right.
So overall, I think the album's good, but my main gripe is that a lot of the riffs in the new album, they sound a little bit too much like riffs that they've done in the past 2 albums. To be honest, I wish that Adam Jones got a little bit out of his wheelhouse, in terms of riffage, because some of the riffs are like, I listen to some riffs that go by and I'm like, even with the bass too, the guitar and the bass, I'm like, oh, they've done those riffs in like, Lateralis and stuff like that, and I'm like, So that's my main gripe about the new album, is that I feel like the guitar riffage isn't very imaginative, or it's not really pushing any boundary.
Now wait a minute. No, I'm okay. No, I'm listening. I'm sorry.
But I do
No,
like.
you're right. you're not wrong. But go ahead.
Well, what I like the most about the album is the broad songwriting. That's what I like about the album.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think.
I feel right. Just to interrupt, I'm not trying to throw mine in the middle of yours, just to kind of back and forth a little. The songwriting I feel is more ahead than 10,000 Days. This one, the songwriting. I mean, it's a jam album as well as 10,000 Days was but I think 10,000 Days was way more of a jam album, jam band than this one. This one had a little more structure, I think, a structure that I liked.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think the new Tool album I think it's one of those albums that takes time. It's like in slow burn. I think it'll age well in Tool's discography, and I think it sort of asks the listener to sort of be patient and just like soak it in. It's one of those things that takes time to really, really fully appreciate the whole experience. Because at first listen, you're like, yeah, sounds like Tool. But I think the more and more you listen, I think the more nuanced ideas will probably be more noticeable over time.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think basically so that's a pretty fair review. That's honestly I don't have, I can mirror a lot of that exact same thought process to you, but what you just described was my first listen.
Okay.
Almost like to the T, like every thought that I had because of, like I said, 13 years waiting, and my niece's whole life, she doesn't even, that's too big for her to even get that. She doesn't even care. She's like, well, whatever that means. I'm like, that's a lifetime. We've waited a lifetime. And I kind of like what you said, like, you wish Adam Jones maybe came out of his wheelhouse a little. That's what I feel like. The first thing I said on the first song they released, I'm like, okay, it didn't take them 13 years to write that. Now that much I know. And I mean, just to say it's bad, but I'm like, now that much I know. It's like, okay, this is a safe type. Okay, so my first reaction was basically everything you just thought.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to it again all the way through, and something happened. And this is going to sound all hippie. And here's the other thing. Like, I took drugs. You've never taken drugs. That's the difference between you, which doesn't really matter. I mean, not really, but it's like, personally though, for me, my acid days, quote unquote, were Tool was heavily involved in that. That was almost part of it. And, I don't fucking, I haven't taken acid since high school. I'm fucking 37. I don't do that anymore. But something happened. I definitely did get stoned and played it that second time through. And I just sort of, something clicked more where I really, what this album really, it felt like suddenly that second time through was, okay, it really clicked in all previous Tool experiences before this. It reminded me of that. It kind of like everything, like you said, it's very Tool. And, long story short, the bottom line I kind of reached was, what has any band really done that Tool hasn't already done since the 90s? And it's like, we kind of forget that because they've been dormant for so long. But it's like, what they've done as far as opening my mind musically in those days. Because, dude, I remember acid and headphones and just cutting myself off. And like, I could be very social in my acid days in high school. I've had a bad in my life. See, this is interesting. You've never taken acid.
No.
Me about it a couple times throughout since we've known each other, like fucking years ago. I don't know. You've been kind of curious, like, what is it? Is it like weed? It's like, no fucking way. It's completely indescribable. Like it's certainly, especially the first time or first couple times, it flips your world upside down. I've never had a bad trip. I was actually kind of that guy that you were able to, if you're having a bad trip in the group, I'm the guy to come to. Like I can talk you down and just go, like, hey man, it's just a drug. We just paid for this, man. We took money out of our pocket to do this because we were bored. If we didn't do this Friday, we would have been sitting at home, Twisted Metal on PlayStation, going, man, I wish we could have found some acid. So just don't trip out. This is what we wanted to do.
Yeah,
We're looking Taco Bell and we're going to feel better. I was the guy to go to. I've never had a bad trip, but my favorite thing to do would be like at the end of the night, coming down on acid, and you got to have a bowl or a joint to fucking help you come down off that shit. And 2 packs of cigarettes to fucking chain smoke through, and then just headphones and Tool and Enema. And you're like, okay, that was my favorite acid experiences that I can remember. And, it just sort of reminded me of that when I listened to it the second time around. Also, I checked lyrical content, and I was really kind of listening to what this Tool album is about. And have you thought much about that?
That's actually a very interesting. That's a good question. I have this bad habit of, I don't know if it's a bad habit, but I've never really paid it much attention to the lyrics of songs, and I know that that's a whole nother aspect of the music that I'm kind of missing out on, but I've never really
Tool.
paid attention to the lyrics. I just listen to the music and the melody that the singer's making in relation to the music, and the music itself is kind of the storyteller for me.
Well, okay. I mean, fair enough, but I mean, and I know you appreciate lyrics nonetheless and the patterns and how it's structured. You've written lyrics for our old bands a few times, so you know how to do it. You get it. But you don't pay attention. You don't necessarily read the liner notes, but you've listened to Tool for years, so you've certainly picked some stuff up by ear. So,
yeah.
Generally, the theme for this album, I don't know yet. I don't think it's really been interpreted, because the thing about Maynard's lyrics, he is not only one of the favorite vocalists. There was a time. See, the thing with Tool, it's so hard for me to fucking sit here and put this album on a fucking chopping block at all and try to dissect it, because it's like, number one, first and foremost, to hear this ensemble again in the best production they've done so far, like you said, that enough is, I'm happy, and like, I like it. My first answer is, what do you think of it? Good. It's good. It's good. It's just, of course it is, dude. It's fucking Tool.
Yeah.
Many bands like Catatonia, Carnival, so many other bands that I've gotten into that I feel like have sort of gone the next level. The only reason they've really gone the next level is because they were still active in songwriting and shit. These guys were icons, so they just sort of rock starred themselves into obscurity, and that's okay. What the fuck ever. But it doesn't necessarily mean when the album comes out that we've been waiting for, when they fucking come out of obscurity like Daniel Day goddamn Lewis. Every time thank you. Every time he fucking does a movie, he retires, but then he comes back for another movie and he wins a fucking goddamn Oscar for it. It's like the only actor ever. That's sort of Tool. Tool is the Daniel Day-Lewis and rock in the rock world.
I was about to say the same thing.
So it's like, okay. So immediately when I hear the new album, I'm happy. I'm like, this happened. And we survived to hear it, and that's huge. And it clicked with me the second time especially. I love this band. This band will always be with me no matter what influences me, especially in rock or anything heavy. Because let me just say that, since I mentioned heavy, I wish Maynard would scream. He didn't really go off. He didn't explode this time. He did what he wanted to do. So I'm not going to sit here and put him on the chopping block, but it's like, he did not. I wanted one fucking, like, fucking Maynard fucking.
Yeah.
It was, but also I will say on the other end of that, on the other side of that, is the effects were superior on his vocals the entire album. I could sit there and listen to Maynard sing all day. Anything new Maynard sings on, I will be listening to. I just like hearing his voice. So yeah, basically, it clicked with the old albums. It sort of was almost like a curtain call. If this is the last album, I hope it's not, but it very well could be. It sounded almost like a curtain call to Tool, but lyrically, I will say, I think he's talking to us and his band a little bit here and there. I think the message this time is to us, like descending particularly. And I'm going to read some of the lyrics here. I have them copied. If I can fucking read, you're going to hear a lot of ice here and here jingling.
What's your drink for the night?
It's vodka Coke, just some snake oil, as my uncle calls it. Just some dirty fucking $2 vodka and RC Cola. The cheapest thing on the show. Just a punch right in the ball.
You need to just, before you read these lyrics, you need to just just spring for $2 more, and you'll get a better vodka.
I like my drink. I like the Chaz signature. I call it the cancer.
Why?
I don't know. It just has a good ring to it. All right. So this is what I mean by what maybe the message from Tool on this album is. This is Ascending. Check. Free fall through our midnight. This epilogue of our own fable. Heedless in our slumber. 13 fucking years? I don't know. I might be interpreting this different. Floating niscient.
I don't know what that word.
It's a word. I looked it up earlier.
It's a what?
It's a word.
Well, it's definitely a word.
We free fall through this boundlessness, this madness from our own making. Falling isn't flying. Floating isn't infinite. Come, our end suddenly. All hail our lethargy. So they're so lethargic in how long it took them. This is how I took this, and there's a lot of lyrics like this. Do you know what I mean? Let's see. Stir us from our wanton slumber, mitigate our ruin, call us to arms and order, sound the dread alarm through our primal body, sound the reveal, to be or not to be, rise, stay the grand final or finale. It's probably finale. I'm not a smart man. Stay the reading of our swan song and epilogue. One drive to stay alive. I think this is to him or to his band and to us. Did you see him on Rogan? Because that podcast, he reveals a lot on a few of Rogan's podcast interviews because he's on like 3 or so.
I've only seen one of them.
The most recent one, probably, right?
I don't remember.
Well, there's some old ones, and he kind of, because Rogan doesn't really he doesn't reach the subject because he's not really interested in that, the rock band themselves. So I just said the rock band describing Tool. What the fuck is wrong with me? The rock band known as Tool.
They're a 90s rock band.
They are. Oh, speaking of that, Opiate, Tool's first album. Dig on this.
Mm-hmm.
Opiate was released in 1992. If you were to Google right now, how long ago was 1992? It is 9,500 days ago.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I think that's kind of cool. If they would honestly, they waited this long. If they would have waited a year and some change, they could have released their next album 10,000 since their first album.
And then they could have given each other enemas.
All right, so that's my review of the new album. I liked it. Numa is amazing. I will say this: Numa has the best heavy Tool riff I've ever heard.
Ba-na, ba-na, that one. Ba-na, ba-na,
Jana, 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 Jana. That shit is dope, dude. I'm sorry, but and I love that Maynard doesn't sing over it. He leaves it. It's this Tool moment where you know what he's doing. He's live. He's in the back in the back corner next to the drums, just Maynarding out
just
to that part, just twitching out. That's the fucking. That's I think the most original moment on the album. That's the most new, unique thing they brought us is Numa. They gave us something that I haven't felt since Enema, really. Felt deep inside since Enema. So that's my review. You know what? I love the album, basically. It really, especially the second time around, I'm like, I feel this time around. I really do. And it reminded me of the rest of the Tool albums. And yeah, I dig it, especially Numa. I've seen really, when you go online on social media, it's people are, Tool fans especially, they're the worst. It's not just like, I disagree. People have been saying this is their best album, and they're just fucking stoked. And you'll see comments underneath that are like, they're not just saying, "Well, I have to fucking disagree," respectfully disagree. It has to be like, "I hope your mother's in a wheelchair." Jesus Christ!
People are very passionate about it, and they're also.
So this brings us to our next one. Sorry, what? Did you want to finish your thought?
I feel like as I've gotten older and as my depression has matured, I care less about
get all serious already. This is episode 1. And I'm already slurring, and you're already talking about depression. This is not good. This is... We're not setting an example.
Keeping it real. No, I'm just kidding.
All right.
The thing is, what I'm saying... I'm sorry?
That moves to the next question. Where were you, if you can remember? Where were you when you bought 10,000 Days?
I think I was... it's funny, I was thinking about this the other day. I think I was... Okay, so back in Monterey, where I'm from, and where you used to live as well. By the way, for our listeners, that's where me and Chaz met. I joined his band. We used to live in Monterey a long time ago. So I was down there. I was working at the Del Monte Shopping Center, and I remember the Tool album just came out. So I'm pretty sure I remember going into the warehouse. So back then, there used to be a record store called The Warehouse, and it was at the mall. And I would go in there, and I bought 10,000 Days.
Wait, which mall?
At the Del Monte Shopping Center.
Oh, don't wait. Oh, what? The Warehouse.
Yeah.
Suncoast, the movie place. I don't remember the Warehouse.
The Warehouse was it was on the far side by the parking lot. It doesn't matter.
God,
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I used to go in there when I was a kid and get CDs, and then before it closed down, I remember buying 10,000 Days, and I really dug the artwork, and I listened to it, and I was excited. I was very excited at the time. I was like, "Oh, a new Tool," and yeah.
Oh shit! Fuck! Oh, all right. That's a good story. Before I go to my 10,000 Days purchase, I forgot to mention, how about the fucking artwork for the new album? You watch the fucking, just look at that. How about that inlay?
I can't believe that they,
ridiculous or what?
yeah, they must have sprung for a lot of money because that's basically the inlay is like a video screen.
Dude, it has a fucking charger, an inlay with a charger. Because the 10,000 Days one, they were always, Adam Jones is all about the movie makeup. He worked on Predator, the original Predator costume. And he worked in Hollywood movies. Yeah, he did movie makeup. And then he always did their own graphics, the videos that we saw on MTV, that fucking on Beavis and Butthead. And, way back then, it was all Adam Jones.
All the claymation, yeah.
Right, before he got, what is his name, Alex Gray?
Alex Gray, that's right.
We got Alex Gray to do all that fractal type stuff. It was always Adam Jones. But the thing about Tool is they always had very unique and ahead of your time CD inlay stuff. And 10,000 Days, as we all remember, had that 3D. You had 3D glasses in a CD case. No one's ever done that. So it's like, wow, I had the hologram thing where you had to move it up and down to make Maynard or whoever it was on the floor. The whole band's watching the guy blow himself.
Oh yeah,
with his legs, fucking ankles behind his head. Hey, it's a hologram. And
I Yeah.
This one is ridiculous. You actually need a fucking USB charger because it's got a screen with buttons, and which awesome, man. But it's getting kind of ridiculous. I like it. I think it's amazing. But I feel like the next Tool album, if there ever one's, it's just going to be in a vape pen, and you got to smoke the inlay in the album.
And it just appears in your mind.
But yeah, so for 10,000 Days, I remember I was working at Monterey Mattress Factory in Monterey, where we both worked. I don't know if we worked together at the time yet, but
we did later, and that was one of
one of
my
the
favorite
best jobs I ever had in my life, for sure. That was working with Fijians. So people out there, you ever work with Fijians? They're the best people in the world. I recommend working with Fijians.
Anil was one of the coolest.
Neil and Satish are some of the best people I've ever known. We should be giving them a call. But anyway, 10,000 Days. On my lunch break from that factory job, I fucking drove down the street to Circuit City when it was still when it still existed, and fucking bought that shit the day it came out and brought it back to the factory and worked the rest of the day listening to it. Just like, all right, okay, yes. Jam band. Brings us to, by the way, if anyone fucking gives a shit and is still listening, this is some bullshit to listen to in your car or whatever. I know we both have a lot of musician friends and music lover friends that'll definitely have recommendations and reviews about all the same shit. So, we'll have fucking links to our YouTube and our SoundCloud and everything else to, give us subscribers so that we can eventually bring live chat into this. That's the whole idea. So anyway,
yeah,
that brings us to, what is your favorite Tool album?
For a lot of people it's Enema, but I think the album that I don't know if it's a combination of nostalgia or just where I was at the time mentally, but Lateralis had a big impact, and I think that might be my favorite album.
All right. A lot of people agree with you. Honestly, more people seem to answer that than anything that in my encountering, either online and personally.
Yeah, something about that album is just very, very. It's less angry than Enema, but it's also very just. I mean, I feel like Tool was kind of in their prime when they made that album, in terms of ideas and things like that. And one of my favorite Tool songs in general is the first song off of Lateralis, which I think is called "The Grudge."
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I love that song from beginning to end. It's just like it's probably my favorite Tool song.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a big tamale.
It's funny because when I was young, my favorite Tool song was Third Eye, but then when Lateralis came out, it quickly became that first song, The Grudge.
Wow.
Something about it, it just hit the right. It hit the right neurons at the right time.
I think a lot of people will agree with that. For me, I have to say what's your second, if you had to say?
My second favorite album would definitely be Enema.
Yeah, so that's going to have to be my first. And obviously, Tool, all music is very personal to everybody, obviously, but Tool in particular is very personal because it runs so deep, I think. I mean, they are so their own goddamn thing in all of our brains. It's this one musical tentacle that just that this frequency that we all have. It's that third eye. Really, they say it best. That third eye and all of us represent something very personal to all of us, obviously. Yeah. They're the one, dude. Anyone that ever asks, what is Tool like? Even my niece was like, I've never heard it. What are they like? I'm like, you know what? I can't answer that.
Yeah, they're kind of indescribable.
They're in this, like someone said it best years ago, where it always stuck with me, where they said, the only best description of the band is the name of the band.
That's true.
It's like immediately when you just say it's just Tool. Like when you hear Carnival, which I recommend strongly, anyone who hasn't heard the band Carnival with a K. What are they, Australian, right?
They're from Australia, Perth.
Fucking it. They even have "ool" in their band name, so it's almost blatant. It's almost blatantly okay. You know where it's coming from.
I didn't notice that until you mentioned it.
It's very Tool-y, it's Tool-y, but god damn it, they're so good. And they really, and, you know, any of these bands you hear that, you know, Chevelle is the one on the radio in America that everyone's most familiar with. That's sort of grabbed their sound. At least it's obvious to me.
Yeah, a little bit.
Perfect Circle's Maynard, so they get to do that. You know, I'm not counting them. I'm talking about other bands that have their sound.
But even still, like bands like Chevelle and Carnival, I appreciate the fact that both of those bands, they took notes from like Tool's style, and they incorporated it into their music. But each of those bands still kind of had their own voice. And they don't really, even though Carnival, there are moments where it sounds like, oh, these guys were definitely listening to Tool when they wrote this part.
Oh my God. There is one song on the album Sound Awake by Carnival, which is a masterpiece. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. But there is one moment in it in one song where I'm like, this is Third Eye. They just wanted to see how close to Third Eye they could get. And they're like, you can't ignore it. And some of the bass tones where they're like, you know, it just makes me think, now, okay, guys, I like Tool too, you know, but they, you know, like this is where you were going. They create something else out of it that is so all their own, that was born of it.
I think one of the big differences between Tool and that particular Carnival album, because the album that Carnival put out after Sound Awake, in my opinion, is it's very, very different. It's a little bit more lo-fi. It's a little bit more post-rocky. But in terms of Sound Awake, I think the thing that sets them apart from Tool, in my opinion, is number one, the singer has a completely different type of voice, and number two, there's lots of parts where has two players and they're each always doing something different at the same time, but they all sort of blend together. Whereas Tool has only one guitar player doing lots of stuff.
Dude,
so they definitely have their own. They definitely have their own sound, and I respect what they're doing. But they do at the same time wear their influences on their sleeve a little bit, which is fine.
That is such a good way to say it, and it's so, the way you mention that, it's so weird to say, like. Carnival singer, I've never heard somebody remind me so much of someone else where they're actually totally different. I don't know how. You know what I mean? You're right. But I don't know. Maybe if in a different setting, that singer wouldn't have anything to do with Tool. It wouldn't remind me of it at all. But it just, I don't know. Maybe the setting he's in is what sounds Toolish. But I don't know. All right. So that's the Tool fucking rant. I want to get into something else here, since I'm starting to slur and stutter.
Go for it.
Something else we want to do is in the comments, all these topics, everybody fucking, you know, what is your opinion? Because we'll talk about it on the next episode. Basically, what is your favorite Tool album? What did you think of the Tool album? We might save that till the end of the episode, but where were you when you bought 10,000 Days? If you can remember, share it. We want people to interact in the comments section with each other more than us, because we are kind of useless. So moving on from music for a minute.
Sure.
How is life, bro? What's going on with you?
Well, right now I'm living in East Oakland. I'm a bartender at a job. I mean, but that doesn't make sense. My job.
We don't need you don't need your Tinder profile information.
Okay, well,
Say anything new happened? Anything exciting? What's going on in life, bro?
um, I'm just trying to make music, and you know, my other band Ontogeny played a really cool show up in Northern California. That was a lot of fun. We played a little thing called Metal in the Mountains, which was this little, basically a music festival up in the mountains.
Ontogeny. So spell that for anyone who hasn't heard it. That's your. That's Keith's. What would you call it? Tech death metal band.
Yeah, people call it. Well,
With
Nate.
with a prog twist.
Yeah, it's. I think Nate would just
Pigeonholed into a fucking genre. I know that, but you gotta differentiate shit from country or metal or R&B. You know, you gotta do something. So
I think Nate would describe it as technical death metal. It's definitely metal, but whether it's
Ontogeny with an O and a Y at the end. Facebook, all this shit.
Oh, I can. Yeah.
Metal Fest looked sick as fuck, dude.
It's
That looked great.
For anybody curious to look it up, it's ONTOGENY. And we do have a Bandcamp page on Bandcamp Ontogeny. All of our albums are up there if you want to listen. So yeah, I've just been working with that band, and other than that, I mean, I've been for the last 2 years, I've been working on this album with Chaz, called IDSF. Second album we put out in. When did the first album come out? 2007 or something, or 2012?
No, we wrote this shit in 2005. By the way, since this is the first episode, we'll go. This is the introduction. This is not a podcast where we're going to be shamelessly self-promoting. And I don't even feel like I should have had to have a disclaimer just now. Kind of sound like a dick. But I'm just saying, like, you know, we may as well get it out there. We're not trying to plug our shit, but yes, we did just release an album, and Ontogeny did too. What's the name of Ontogeny's album?
Called wow, I forgot actually.
Anti-social media.
Oh, that's bad. I have a really bad memory. Yes, it's called Anti-Social Media. Thank you, Charles.
So yeah, both albums I'm very happy to at least be affiliated with and know these guys, and because I was really on my way out from music. I'll be honest with you. I live in Florida, and in the very remote small town of Florida that I live in,
The dirty stuff.
a musician once told me when I first moved here, he's like, you know, this place squelches ambition. And I'm like, you know, I can sense that, but I still kept making music and kept going. But about 5 years later, boy, he was right. I was on my way out. I was just turning to ash, just fucking, I didn't give a shit anymore. There's no crowd, there's no audience for it. But thanks to Keith and Anthony Moore, you know, an amazing sound producer and sound wizard and overall engineering, and
good friend of mine as well. Yeah,
he helped, and Nate too. Nate from Ontogeny did drum recordings, which all made this shit possible, and it all is it was a fun deal. But yeah, so that was good. So that's good, man. You're doing lots of music, and that's good.
I can't stop. You know, I mean, I it's what I do, and I have to. It's the most important part of my life for sure. I'm never going to stop making music. And yeah, so I've just been, you know, focusing on Ontogeny, and we just finished that album, You and Me. And if anybody's curious, by the way, I'm only going to do this once. So if anybody's curious, it's IDSF, just those 4 letters together, .bandcamp.com. You can listen to our new album.
You can do it more. Nothing. You're not sorry. No, go ahead.
I don't know. I'm just saying, if anybody's curious, if anybody wants to check it out, let us know.
Yeah, we should be plugging the shit out of that for a while. So honestly, no apologies. Fuck you. Listen to our music.
Yeah, it's
well, for me, life has been pretty much work, sleep, booze, work, sleep, booze. That's my cycle. I'm trying to drink less, and you know, well, because I work at a hotel job, graveyard shift,
Mm-hmm.
I get a lot of sleep, way too much sleep. But I did have. I lead a very lonely life in a remote town in Florida. I don't, I haven't dated in a long time, and that's okay with me. I've gone through some shit where I'm like not going boohoo, except to say being single has been so goddamn peaceful. I just don't want any sudden movements in the water.
I got the same problem, man. I sleep way too much. I've been trying to get out of that habit, but it's just easy to just want to sleep all day.
Dude,
So
you know it's bad when like I sleep so much and I have nothing going on to the point where I go to drink just so I know I'm going to be hungover if I drink tonight, and sure as shit I'm hungover the next day. But then I feel like, well, at least this is something.
that's not good.
This feels at least different, some odd.
No, yeah, for me,
The other night, so this aesthetic. This is how I have the nothing that I have going on in my life that I had a little excitement. I'm out, because I start work at 11 p.m. and I work till 7 a.m. at a hotel front desk. It's overnight, which I like because I'm by myself. I dig it. But I go to Subway sandwiches to get a sandwich, and I'm in line, and I step in line, and it's this pretty long line, and this guy on this table behind me, I almost got in a fight.
What?
I was this close to getting in a fight, coming to fisticuffs.
Dude, what did you do?
So I'm in line, and this guy behind me, he just goes, "Hey, yo," and I'm like, "Okay." Start with this. I've started to become racist.
I don't know if you should.
After I say that, hear me out, all right? Don't start turning your shit off now. This is where it starts getting interesting, right? So it's close to October. I already know what I'm going to be for Halloween. Listen, it's almost October. I know what I'm going to be for Halloween.
What are you going to be?
I'm going to be the White Power Ranger.
Don't do that.
Not the ninja. A White Power Ranger. Think about it.
No, I got it. I got the joke.
No, I'm just kidding. No, look, that's a total joke. I'm not racist at all. I am not a racist. Anyone could ask you. I've dated black chicks. I was raised by jazz musicians. I don't have a racist bone in my body. Now, I don't necessarily want you to look at my Facebook activity.
So wait a minute. Are you saying all jazz musicians are black?
No, I'm saying.
I'm just kidding.
Don't fucking derail me. So, look.
No, go ahead.
Every white person in the world has a right to at least, we are still human too. I feel like it's almost to the point of becoming illegal to be a straight white male in America.
I don't know about that.
All right. Well, look, I'm just saying we're white. If you cut us, do we not bleed? Pure. No, I'm just kidding. That was a bad joke.
Dude, I think we're going to move on from this topic.
I'm so kidding. Will you fucking, I'm joking.
Of course. Of course.
This is what I was going to say, if you would just let me finish.
I'd like to add something.
I'm becoming racist against white people.
Yeah. I could
Specifically young white men in any backpack or camouflage or military green cargo pants, anything like that, I am afraid of. In light of these fucking shootings. That's where I'm going with this.
Yeah, it is kind of funny how all the,
All right, look, let the joke bomb. Okay. I wasn't funny. You don't have to say anything. Just let me bomb. Just let me relax, shut up, and let it bomb. So, I'm at Sub.
Okay, keep on going.
And it's a long line. This guy's sitting at a table behind me. And I'm already pissed because I have to get up and go to work. I'm annoyed for who knows fucking what. And I hear this guy behind me go, "Yo, hey." I'm like, yeah, he's like, "I'm next after them." And I'm looking at this huge space. And I'm like, at him, and he could see me giving the body language of like, and he's like, and he said it again. I'm next after them, and he's this sort of shorter white dude, and I just went, "You're in line back here," with a smile. But you know how I like to be obnoxious to people. My favorite thing to do.
You like to push.
But wait, he was way not in line, and the way he said it was so. I'm next after them, like like next, and I was like,
I feel like that would have me as well. I'd be like
with a smile,
yeah,
because I'm thinking I'm cute, and this is his response. You want to start something, homeboy? Okay. So immediately, my reaction is, all right, how did this get to this level? I thought I was being cute. But at the same time, I'm like, everyone in the fucking goddamn corner store now here, because this is one of those Subways that's attached to a gas station. So the whole fucking place is like looking at us. And I know, because I troll enough on Facebook on my off time, that no one would help me. Everyone would just bust out their phone and start recording.
Sure.
So, and I'm like, so the first thing, this is what's pathetic about my life right now. My first thought in my mind is, I think he's challenging me. This is like a duel. This will be a fight. And that was exciting. I'm like, wow, this is something. And I wasn't even worried about if it would hurt if I got hit in the face. And I'm like, I was trying to gauge the situation. I'm like, okay. But then, as I'm looking at him in the eyes, and I kind of responded with, no, man, I'm not trying to start nothing, but I'm just like, you're not really in line. And he as I'm looking at him, it was so weird. Like, I'm looking at him in the eyes, but his prison tattoos started sort of coming into focus in like IMAX 3D. I started like my brain literally in my periphery, and they honestly started spelling out the words like stop, don't do it. And I was kind of like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do this. But then he said something. He's like, yeah, look at my foot, bro. And apparently he was injured and he had some cast and shit on his foot. And I looked down, and then I thought, all right, I could probably take this guy. All I have to do is like slam these chairs on his feet, and he can't do shit. He'll drop like a fucking rock. But then I immediately thought, all right, but he's white. A white young man, and he was wearing cargo shorts. He had a fucking gun. In this climate.
Oh, okay. I get
so
what you're saying.
Basically where I landed was, he's like, you want to start something, homeboy? And I was like, yes, I want to start something, sir. You're a sandwich. Can we get this hungry man a sandwich? And I learned I'm not at all tough. I don't care. If it was my family next to me or something, I might have turned into half werewolf, but I didn't give a shit about my masculinity. Fuck that. Whatever. So it wasn't even really annoying. I just, why am I going to fucking get in a fight over a Subway sandwich? I haven't had a decent sandwich since I moved from San Francisco, so fuck it.
Well, it's definitely not worth it, but it sounds like it diffused the situation.
Well, I bailed out.
That's a way of diffusing.
So that's been my life. On to the next point.
I'm just trying to think. Hold on, before we. What music has
versus what it once was?
Well, I would just like to add.
Listen, this is what I mean by that. It's kind of vague. What listening to music has become versus what it could be. Take Tool, for example. God bless them. They have a great end to bring us something different, because everything has gotten so oversaturated. No one gives a shit anymore. Now, today in the digital world, no one really gives a shit. This is what I feel like music has become, and it's very unfortunate. And this is something that I heard from my uncle, Bud, an amazing, phenomenal bass player, by the way. And he saw an article, I can't really remember exactly who it was, where they had a huge rant, this professional musician, where they're like, music is something that you just find while you're browsing your own other bullshit. I'm paraphrasing horribly. I'm not doing it justice at all, but basically it all boils down to that. Music today is just, what are you going to put in the background of your daily browsing? And what are you browsing that is so goddamn, you know what I mean? It's usually toxic. It's just, it was kind of like that before, because you could make your own mixtape, you know what I mean, in the 90s. For those days of like listening to the radio, and you're able to like, you would have your stereo recording, the play and record button were hit and the pause button was hit, so that during the radio, you would wait for your song and you had to quickly, you know what I'm saying? And quickly hit pause so that you could capture your song in the mixtape. That's how you would make mixtapes, literally.
What I think has honestly changed the most about how music was in the 90s, back when we were growing up, versus what music is like now. Music is the same as it ever was. I just think that the big difference between then and now was that back then, during the radio days, the amount of music that was released was limited to the radio, and things were much more exciting back then. Nowadays, you can stream everything, and things come out instantly, and you can listen to the whole album the moment it gets uploaded.
Okay.
So I think, in my opinion, the biggest difference is that a lot of the excitement of music coming out, of new music, has easy access to music. I feel like there was something to be said about limited access and limited release of music back in the day. Things were just more exciting when they came out because you had to wait for it. Nowadays, you don't have to wait for anything.
Dude, exactly. And not only that, you just said it. When an album gets released, when the full album gets released, even digitally, it's such a different fucking phenomenon than before. Back in the day, it was the physicality of it. It was an actual thing to open a new record and actually smell it. They would actually smell it. They would smell the record when they opened it, smell the vinyl. A brand new record. Like, that's how connected and close it was. And it sounds silly, it sounds hippie, but it really, that's the difference. And plus you had this giant book for the lyrics. You were basically immersed in this world. And you know what? We caught a little bit of that with the CD era. Like, I had a nice CD booklet. A lot of us did, or the CDs, and even in our car visors, remember when you could put your visor down, and that was your goddamn life analogy. Your self-expression was up there on that visor. Whatever it was, like, that's your fucking vehicles. I don't give a fuck what you want to listen to. You're in my car. This is what's happening. And that, a self-expression. It's so different these days with digital album. Like, now, no one gives a shit about what a band releases in order. Like, I think every band still, like Tool, would love you to listen to it in order. And you almost have to take extra steps to even figure out what the order is now, right? That's what I have to do. I have to go to Google and go track list to know what order it is. Because if I just go to YouTube, it's just all shuffled.
Oh, that's true. That's a good point. I mean,
it's like, I don't think, but Maynard did make a great point in an interview with Rogan recently, where someone asked him, like, hey man, that's what sucks about the digital. It's the first time I've heard someone else touch on this point, where it's like the digital era, they don't give a fuck about track order. Or Maynard was trying to make that point to someone he was talking to, and their answer to Maynard was, because Maynard said, yeah, we want people to hear it in the order we put it. And then their answer was, like you guys do live? And Maynard goes, oh. I don't know why, but that seemed like a good point, where he's like, they never worry about that in concert. So it seems to be really self-serving and not as important as Maynard's making it sound. That's what I got out of that, where it's like, it's important to them. But at the same time, if you could just see it how a band sees it, this is a story, right?
Sure. you know, if a band wants to put a certain amount of songs in a certain order out, that adds to the flow of an album listening experience. That's important. And of course, you can switch it up live, but yeah, I mean, it is, you know, it's part of the experience listening to an album in a certain order. And so there is something to be said about that. But yeah,
that's the one thing I have to say to the question. The initial question that I had was, what is music, listening to music today versus what it used to be? And that's the one thing I can distinguish that's a major difference, is
yeah,
really listen in order in an album release and appreciate the journey, and they don't immerse themselves into a world that a band provided for them in this album, and like not as much as them bringing a band into their world of browsing.
yeah. I think that that's definitely an issue, probably with a lot of the younger people these days. It's just track by track, whatever tracks on YouTube. But I think
whatever tracks on YouTube in the background, they're browsing, which, whatever. We used to fucking clean the house to a mixtape. You know, we used to clean the house to or whatever, not just chores, but just anything. Playing my favorite video game to a mix. Remember those mixes I used to make?
yeah,
I just made mixes of metal or symphonic or intertwined them, and electronic music, anything that made it. Remember that fucking Death song that I had the intro of? Was it a fucking thing where it had the Beethoven?
yeah, you put Beethoven over the drum. I remember.
It sounded like with it. I did this just for fun. Like, we had that before. So you live, and the music changes you, but it seems so different these days, where it's just more self-serving and not as much admiration. Like, goddamn, if you go, and I'm gonna go way far back. You go to the far extreme of it. People used to actually gather around in like Vienna to hear the world's greatest piano player play a piano. They would bring their families. It was like an event, like going to a goddamn IMAX 3D movie just to hear the best musician. These days, no one appreciates shit. I said appreciate. I've been dreaming, but you know what I'm saying?
I see what you mean, but I do still believe that real, true music lovers out there, they will, no matter what era we live in, people who really, really love music and it really has a big impact on them, they will still go the extra mile to find the track listing, listen to a whole album when it comes out. So yeah, it's still, I think, but I see what you're saying. I think a lot of younger people, you know, the way music is these days and the accessibility to it, yeah, it's easy to just go track by track and whatever track's online, new one. But I feel like if somebody really, really is excited about something, they will choose to listen to an album all the way through to get that experience. It's really hard.
I think it's a lost art. I think it's a lost art that is the intention of every band that releases every album that they release to date. And it's something that's lost on the listeners completely ever since the fucking Apple Music, iTunes era. And it's kind of a shame. People don't care. They're just like, look, I'm going to listen to what's convenient during the rest of my browsing day. I'm guilty of it too. That's exactly what I do. You probably do too. You know what I mean? We don't notice we even do it. It's just part of the daily routine, like brushing your goddamn teeth these days. Like, hey, whatever I can grab via link, right? Whatever the first thing is in my feed, whatever fucking social media you're on. And it's I'm not trying to trash anybody. It's just, it's a lost thing that I think very young people don't even think about. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do get it, but they get it in a different form. They get it in sort of it's in a capsule. It's encapsulated in this YouTube video, right? Like Cannibal Corpse, The Bleeding. I just sent to my niece the other day because she's starting to get an interest in death metal. I'm like, well, if you're going to go death metal, this is a good place to start. So I sent her Cannibal Corpse, The Bleeding. And I was like, now look, this is not something I want you to show your teachers that I showed you, But this, if you're going to go death metal, this is the most famous, most brutal and most offensive death metal in the world. And she's a horror fanatic. She loves horror movies. So I figured, hey, look, if you're gonna go real,
Right,
you know, she
alley.
gets it. So, but she's gonna get it via this one little YouTube thing where it just seems, God, it's not the same, man. It's not the same. We had a little bit of it. I remember I collected every Death album. Well, a lot of my favorite bands, but it definitely Death and Opeth stand out, but mostly Death. I made sure every paycheck for a while. What the fuck was that music store in Monterey? Was it Do Re Mi?
It's probably Do Re Mi.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah. I think
Dude, that's the one they actually sell. I actually had to put in, this is before internet was really, you know, it wasn't such a goddamn common thing. And I had to put in special order for these Death albums, and I got them one at a time, and it was a big deal to me. And like having them, collecting them, the physical fucking thing was still a thing, and that was the end of it. Now it's
I do feel bad. I do feel bad for kids these days that they don't really get to experience. Like I said, I'm sure some of them still do, but I feel like a lot of them, they probably don't get to experience what we experienced, being excited about a physical CD coming out in the music store and buying it and popping it in to your CD player and sitting down and listening all the way through. Yeah, people don't really get to experience that much these days.
And good speakers or good headphones, not earbuds or your laptop or your cell phone where there's no bass. Who knows how much is really missing with young people today because they don't even get it. That, dude, earbuds? Really? That's it? Your whole life? Oh my God. If you were to put headphones on them suddenly, like studio headphones, they would be like, I'm hearing this whole other universe.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, these, those Apple headphones are actually pretty good. They the technology gets better and better.
Go ahead and just trash my point entirely. Like,
I'm not trashing it. I'm just a counterpoint. So.
All right. Well, look. Here's the last bullet point we have for this fucking disaster. I don't know. Was this a disaster, this first episode? I know I've been drinking and I'm not promoting that. I feel like we're doing okay. But the last point that I have is album recommendations. So let me try to explain this if I can.
I feel like this episode went pretty well. It was fun for me.
I think it's fun. We went with Tool because it's a hot topic, but this is the hook that I was trying to explain to Keith earlier. I'm kind of just throwing this on Keith. He doesn't really, we haven't really thought this out. And again, we want to try to make this something where we can have live chat or live streaming interaction where it'll be cooler. But the way we want to try to interact with people from this point is, if you dig this episode, if you like listening to it, what the fuck ever, you heard our review of the new Tool album. We would like to hear yours. Right now we're going to say, I guess we will have a YouTube page and we've got a SoundCloud page, but right now Facebook is where we'll probably be looking at comments. So for the time being, until we get, we want to get Twitch involved probably. I want to learn more. If anyone has any advice also about how to make live stream possible and like live chat, just message us or whatever. We're going to get links up for the Facebook page. So right now in the Facebook comments, give us your best, most in-depth review of Tool Fear Inoculum, which by the way, inoculum means medicine. So I feel like the fear, I don't know. What does that mean to you? Fear medicine.
Medicine to get rid of fear.
Yeah, you guys, we touched on.
It's like fear inoculum. It's like it's something to inoculate yourself from fear, to get rid of the fear, basically.
So it's an antidote of fear.
Well, you know how when you get a flu shot, you're theoretically inoculating yourself from the flu. It's like that. So yeah, I guess it's supposed to be about overcoming fear, basically.
See, this is a smarter man than I. And I talk too much. Keith is, I'm the guy who did the drugs. Keith's never done the drugs. We have a different perspective. He's also an amazing musician. I'm glad to be having conversations. We're going to have guests also. We know we have a lot of friends that are musicians and lovers. So you guys, this is basically the idea. Give a review of Tool's new album. Put it in the comments, and we will, at the end of the comments, in parentheses, you give us your recommendation. We're going to call this R, right? This is how we're going to end every episode. We're going to end it with a little bit of R&R, meaning review and recommendation. So it's like a chain. Does this make sense, Keith, at all?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea too.
So basically, you review the new Tool album and a nice in-depth review. We read it. Me and Keith will, and then in parentheses, after your review, you recommend an album of your choice. It could be anything. A metal album you think not many people have heard, something obscure, something in your past, something new. It doesn't fucking matter. But you give us a good review of the new Tool.
Well.
Say what?
It could be any style of music as well.
Any style of music, right? Because we're not talking metal. Like, we know a lot about metal. We know a lot about death metal, melodic death metal. We've been there. We've done it all. But we also know a lot about jazz. We know a lot about rock. We know a lot about R&B. We've been in a soul R&B band, believe it or not. We can answer any questions. Please comment on anything else we've got fucking going on. But that is basically the hook of this podcast, because what we're going to do is you guys give us an in-depth review of Fear Inoculum, the new Tool album. And in the end of that, you recommend any album, any band of your choice, and me and Keith are going to listen to it this week. We're going to try to post these, every Monday? Is that the deal?
Yeah.
We're going to post these every Monday. Look at the comments. Does it make sense yet? I'm kind of fucking rambling.
I think it's a good idea.
All right. So look, that's the deal.
See if we can get it started.
See if we can get it started. The idea is you guys are sharing bands with each other more so than even us. Because yes, we're going to review everything that you guys, recommend us at the beginning of each episode. But the most in-depth review for each episode, they kind of earn their spot for their recommendation. And we'll give you a shout out. Everyone's going to see your review, and hopefully you guys will interact and learn some new bands from each other. So that's the whole thing we got going. So thanks for listening. And right now we're going to fucking call it before I throw up in my mouth. Keith.
Yes, sir.
All right. I'll hit you up next week, bro.
All right. Peace out.
Late.
Late.